back with more Haunting of Bly Manor. This is episode 8, the penultimate episode. Very excited to see what's going to happen. Kind of all kicked off properly in the last episode. Peter seemed to have complete control of Miles. Hannah kind of realised that she was dead. We got like a full explanation of what went down with Rebecca's death, you know, everything leading up to that. What the big plan is for Peter to try and, you know, escape Bly's curse, I guess. And, you know, we've got an idea of like why some of the ghosts' faces kind of melt away, I guess, over time. And we tried to get Flora out. Didn't quite work out because Lady of the Lake was there waiting, so that's fun. So Danny's in a bit of danger, so that makes me nervous. But yeah, shit hit the fan, essentially. So I'm intrigued to see how the story's going to carry on, what we're going to be focusing on next. Because it feels like this should be the last episode, you know? It feels like things have really escalated. So I'm excited to see what they have in store. And yeah, let's get into the next one.
Toward the middle of the 17th century.
Ooh! We're getting some proper backstory.
This left Perdita to entertain the travelled cousin while Viola bode her time. And in doing so learned he was a gentleman. The business, the books, the riding boots in the foyer, even the portrait hanging beyond, commissioned by Viola.
Was there a love triangle?
A true message.
Till death us depart.
It's probably going to happen quite soon.
According to God's
Next 45 minutes, I'd say.
To love, cherish, till death us depart.
And obey. To love, cherish, and obey.
I don't think that was a mistake.
Seized by a restlessness new to her heart, she would walk.
Just like the Ghost version does.
She would sleep. It is you. It is me. It is us.
Oh, that's what Peter and all that was saying last time. To get them to possess.
The rosy times. Her suspicion began as small, as inconsequential as the tickle in her lungs. Velvet and lace from all over the world, and all manner of expense. Some as rare and rich as
All Bly manner of expense. Huh. Well, that's not great. Oh, the Plague Doctor.
How long, Doctor?
What?
Months at the most.
Oh, good.
And I would keep her separate from the rest of you.
want to be in our bed. Arthur.
Isabel. Think of Isabel.
Oh, that's really sad, actually.
Sister, you must repeat the rite. Say the words after me. I go and prepare a
Well, she
place.
didn't do that at the wedding, so I don't know why she'd do it now.
I do not go.
She's not accepting death.
Just tell your God that I do not go.
Auntie, we need music, do we not?
We need sleep.
Oh, you were just
Me every day.
war.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Viola had surpassed the predictions of the physicians and priests alike.
It's like the opposite of the whole Henry situation. 5 years, that as well. Like, can you even imagine? Oh. Oh. Even just like filming that in that angle just makes it creepy.
If he looks at me now and then, it is because he is lonely and he is human. It is because for the last 5 years, the only husbandly duty he's fulfilled is that of mourning.
Ah, this is all the stuff Peter was like stealing.
Promise me that you will keep them for her. That you will keep the key. And you will never give it to anyone except our child.
Yeah, I'm wondering what happens to Isabel as well.
I promise you.
All of them, really.
The word crept down her shoulder and her elbow until the word came to live in her hand. The word
Oh,
was mercy.
shit.
Was a lie. It was every slap, every insult, and every day that had passed, every moment after the last rites. The word had always been enough.
Damn. Keys. Keys again.
They were married, as was becoming, with great privacy.
I'm sure Viola
Secrecy.
is going to be so pleased about this.
Swaggishly remarked at the time that perhaps the late Viola may not hear of
There
it.
you go.
The new Mrs. Lloyd failed to become a mother in her own right, and her adopted daughter refused at every turn to see her as a mother.
Oh,
We cannot even afford a housekeeper anymore, and above us locked away are silks, jewels, and linens.
Heard it.
If not enough to save us, enough to right the ship.
No.
She would want us to. If she could have foreseen how dire things would become, how dire you have made things.
well, she didn't foresee them because she killed her.
Of course, we mustn't dispose of an oath to Viola. But what right had Viola to dispose of our future?
Oh dear. Is Perdita the ghost that Peter was kind of holding in the last episode? So I get it's kind of a viable financial solution to like sell her stuff, but we also feel like she just wants to get rid of any trace of her sister. Then this life can kind of actually feel like it's hers. Oh! Oh shit! Oh! Oh damn. Oh, that was awful. Perdita. Oh damn.
Return, dear listener, to another night.
Yeah, exactly. Why did she become like a ghost? And... It's like how she put petals in the chest. Did Peter taking all that kind of piss her off and that's why she killed him? Or did he just happen to get in the way of her rounds? Oh. Oh, you like covering mirrors too. I know someone else who had trouble with that.
She admitted she was dead. She admitted her husband had moved on. She admitted her daughter was growing
It's like
without
what
her.
Hannah needs to do, admit that she's dead.
And she admitted her room was a dream. One day the locks would see their keys, and one day Isabel would open her mother's trunk and claim her reward.
Except
Both of
it's
their rewards.
Perdita who does it.
Day.
So her hands come out from the chest because that's where she's in. Nothing like the bond between sisters, is there?
Whatever curse had claimed his second wife, he would not risk his daughter to its icy fingers. His daughter nor anyone else.
They dump it. Yeah. Oh. That's why she keeps going back to the lake. It all centres around there because the trunk's in there now.
She instead made her own gravity. Gravity of will. That would change the terrain of Bly Manor forever.
So if people die there now, they're caught in the gravity that she's made.
She would walk back to her home, feeling each time
Muddy footprints.
it was a dream. She would sleep, and she would forget. Having forgotten, she would wake. She would walk.
Oh God.
How many nights? How many walks? She could no longer count.
What a fun existence.
She did not even realise that a decade had passed. Not even realise after an outbreak of plague in the village that the empty manor had become a quarantine for the coughing death that ravaged
And that's why he's there.
Died. So too,
Oh, that's
her
terrifying.
face. So little did she remember.
Ugh.
But one night she found a child in her daughter's old bed. It
Oh.
could not remember who she'd been hoping to see. And here was a child. It must be the child whom she'd sought.
Fuck.
Must. Her fate was a nightmare. A fate that befell all trapped at Bly.
Yeah, I agree.
A fate that befell Viola's once sister.
Yeah.
In the attic.
That is her, okay.
Unaware that she'd ever had a sister at all. No hope for anyone with the sad misfortune to die on the grounds of Bly. No hope for the victims
Oh.
of Bly, be they victims of fate, and no hope it would seem for the younger pair.
I'm not going to end it there again. What? Oh, man. Okay, I can see now why it felt like this could have been the finale, because we've got a flashback episode. I really enjoyed it, though. I thought it was very interesting. I liked getting a lot of like definitive origins for what's going on with Bly, in a way that I don't think they really did with Hill House, like properly explain, you know, how it came to be haunted and everything. And I don't think Hill House needed that for the story. So it is cool they've done something a bit different and properly explained it here. Probably because there's just so much more to like what people kind of may consider ghosts when it comes to Bly Manor, because it's like Danny's guilt haunting her, and like the visions of Eddie, other variations like that. You know, what's going on with Henry and his evil true self. There's kind of different variations. It's not just like, oh, they're all ghosts. So it was cool that they made like the clear distinction by giving, you know, everything in Bly like the origin story, and we saw how it all kind of began with Viola, and then Perdita and Arthur, Isabel, everything with those. So that was cool, and gives them more people from Hill House to use in different roles, I suppose. So yeah, we've got proper origins of Lady of the Lake, which was Viola, which we got mention of ages ago. Episode 4, I think it was, when we first saw her name in like the chapel-y building, engraved on the floor, like her grave, I guess. But yeah, damn. That sisterly kind of bond certainly fell apart. So to see that all unfold, really interesting. The idea that Viola was just so stubborn to not like move on to what's next or anything else, that she kind of creates her own like gravity well that just traps anyone who dies in Bly. It's a really interesting like concept, and I guess it does give us an idea of how we could kind of undo it, I guess, if they somehow, you know, convince Viola to move on or force her to move on. Everyone else, I assume, would just be freed. That would do with Peter, but it'd also mean Hannah would go. So I'm intrigued to see how they're going to deal with that, and the fact that Viola doesn't have any memories of who she used to be or anything like that, as she keeps going around this cycle, which is a horrible fate. You know, is there really a way of convincing her to be like, hey, give it up, mate? Because she doesn't even remember why she's so stubborn, I guess. But yeah, we kind of got all the origins with that, and all the different ghosts we've been seeing, like the little boy that Flora kind of gave a little backstory to herself, the plague doctor guy, the ghost that we saw last time as well, that Peter kind of grabbed and pointed out, this is what happens to us, which I think is the same one that Flora shushed when she was playing hide and seek. That was Perdita. So getting that backstory filled in was quite fun. I like the black and white angle as well. Love me a good black and white episode. And just the idea of like not accepting death, not moving on, which has kind of been a thing for multiple characters, and it kind of all started with Viola not accepting death. I don't know exactly why it did start with her. Was she just the first person to ever die in Bly, or because she was just so stubborn that created the whole thing? Was it because she like refused to read her rights? Is that it? Because that was all talking about, you know, God then making a place for her in whatever comes next, and because she refused that place, she just kind of stayed stuck in this purgatory, and she got put in the trunk and everything. I don't really know. I'd probably have to watch it again, see if I can pick up everything. But it's something like that. I can kind of see where it all started from. She is like the original haunted inhabitant of Bly, I suppose. And yeah, to see it kind of escape from there and really escalate was really interesting. I liked that we got this origin, seeing the kind of love triangle going on with Perdita and Viola and Arthur. I think Perdita did have that interest in him. Then in comes Viola, they get married, stuff like that. It's tough because it didn't seem like they had a particularly bad relationship before Viola got sick. So I think that was kind of her acting out when she'd like slap Perdita and like, lambast her, be quite cruel to her and stuff. And that's kind of 5 years of that. Obviously, that's going to be a lot of resentment building up. And that alongside maybe Perdita, knowing that, I could have had this life. I could have had the daughter. I could have had Arthur to myself. And when she ultimately did marry Arthur and stuff, she never ended up having any kids of her own, even though they were trying. Maybe that's going to add to that kind of resentment. And Isabel not accepting her as a mother, that's going to make her feel quite small and, again, resentful. This is the life I could have had, but Viola had that. And two birds with one stone, I guess, in trying to ease their financial situation by maybe selling all the stuff that Viola wanted Isabel to inherit one day, but also it would wipe away some traces of her sister behind, and the one oath that Arthur was still trying to keep. If they kind of got rid of all that, he wouldn't need to pertain to the oath anymore. He could probably properly let Viola go in a way that obviously she couldn't let go. So maybe that's kind of where Perdita was coming from in terms of that. I think there was just jealousy from both sides, it would seem, kind of all falling apart. And it's kind of sad because Viola didn't ask to get whatever it was she got. I think it was something like tuberculosis or something. They mentioned the lung. I think that might have been tuberculosis, something like that. So, it's not her fault that she got sick. And, Arthur seemed like a genuinely nice, loyal guy right up until the end. And then Perdita, you could say, either way it was like mercy, or there was no jealousy or anything really. It was just she wanted to save the family money and, that's why she got rid of the stuff. But, I think the author was kind of making it quite clear that, she was thinking mercy, but also like, I could then maybe have your husband and have your life. And because you've been horrible to me, I can get rid of you and don't have to, I don't have to deal with that kind of abuse anymore, which is an interesting kind of link, I guess, to Peter, the abuse he kind of put onto others that may have come from abuse put onto himself, granted. So lots of links like that. The fact that Viola wouldn't accept that she was dead, or at least not accepting that she should move on to like whatever came next, being so stubborn as to stay kind of haunting Bly. And that can tie in and link to Peter also not accepting what happened to him. So he orchestrated everything that he did to like take over Miles's body and stuff. So he wouldn't accept what happened to him. And Hannah as well. She was in a lot of denial about the fact that she was dead, and now she's been faced with that. She needs to accept it as well. So I liked that kind of running theme throughout several characters, not being able to accept what their fates were. So yeah, just seeing how it all began, where it all came from, was really interesting. Viola kind of being initially, when she was killed, trapped in the trunk. The fact that she had all the flowers, like the petals in the room that she'd put in the trunk as well. I liked the idea that was kind of her almost prison, and then Perdita released her in a way, and then from there the cycle started, linking back to, even when she was alive, when she couldn't sleep, she'd do those same rounds, and then the fact that they then dumped the trunk in the lake, and that's why she always went in there, and that added to her route. That kind of became the cycle that she constantly did. Really interesting. And what I'm keen to also find out, I imagine they might explain it in the next one, why Gina's character, whoever's kind of telling this story, how she kind of found out about everything with Viola. If even Viola herself doesn't remember, how did they find out that aspect of this story? Because they kind of told a flashback within their flashback ghost story. If we kind of imagine all the guests kind of listening to her story, they're probably thinking like, Jesus Christ, like, I want to go to bed. And then she's like, well, we're going to pause the story I'm currently telling. Let's go back to the 1700s and do all this. So it's kind of funny to picture it like that. But I'm wondering how she kind of found out about this particular, like, the origin story, and why she didn't just start with that and then go into everything else. But, you know, that's me just overthinking it, really. But yeah, as like an origin, it's a really interesting idea to see, you know, what was a nice sisterly bond, it would seem, kind of just completely collapse from like abuse and jealousy and sickness, both of the body and mind, it would seem. And I like that there wasn't necessarily a villain in it per se. Maybe Perdita did end up having some not so good motivations, but Viola was quite cruel to her in the end and abusive to her. But she was sick, frustrated, everything like that. And if she was fine, that wouldn't have happened. It would have been interesting to see how things would have played out if Viola wasn't sick, if it was just like a jealousy thing that kind of got worse over time. I think the fact that Viola and Arthur did have Isabel, that's going to frustrate Perdita further when she couldn't then have her own child with him, and Isabel wouldn't have accepted her as a mother. If she had, maybe things would have again turned out differently, but it's just one of those things. She's still a very young girl who just lost her mother. How they can tie that in, I guess, as well to Miles and Flora, children without parents, or certainly not mothers. So there's lots of links. It's kind of very, you could pick out little sequences like, oh, history repeats itself with this. It's even like the situation with what was it, Henry, Charlotte and Dominic. You know, there are similar veins with that to what could have gone on with Viola, Perdita and Arthur. Obviously Perdita and Arthur nothing happened until after Viola had died, but Perdita murdered Viola, so how much longer she would have lasted would have been quite something as well. Just that moment was like, oh shit, where she just like strangles her and like suffocates her. So yeah, she could tell herself it was mercy, but there was much darker intentions to it. Maybe some selfishly driven intentions at the same time, but you can understand where she's coming from. So I don't want to suffer this abuse any longer. I don't think that's really an excuse, but it's a reason again. And then trying to flog all of the stuff that she left behind for Isabel. Arthur's kind of promise that he'd made to Viola kind of pushed against that, but she was going to, of her own accord, do something about it. Got her killed. So yeah, lots of kind of complexities to that, I think, particularly with Perdita's character. Like, analysing her could be quite interesting with all her different motivations, and it's like a big cauldron of different reasons why she did what she was doing at any given time. And then yeah, just it all starting with Viola and seeing why she's so determined to not just move on. She accepted some aspects of it, like she did accept that she was dead eventually, but then when she was like dumped and left behind and there was no hope for her to kind of continue at least being close to her family in any way, she's like, well, fuck you guys then, I'm gonna stay right here. And just the fate she ultimately kind of left herself to, really sad. How it all played out. It's like, it definitely is like a tragedy more than anything. But yeah, a really interesting one to play out. At the same time, I'm like desperate to know what's happening next with Danny and stuff, but I am glad we got this origin, and now everything's kind of laid out on the table for what is the last episode. Don't know. Would I prefer this earlier in the season? Maybe not, because I think what makes some things kind of spooky is not knowing exactly where it all came from. And like, what the hell's our plague doctor doing here? And, you know, what's this little boy got to do with all of this? And this episode explained all that fairly well, and I don't think I'd want that too early, because that would probably take a lot of the mystery out. But at the same time, I'm like, oh, I want to see what happens next in the present day stuff. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a really cool origin for exactly what's going on with Bly. I liked the parallels to some of the present day characters, what they're going through, the idea of not accepting death or not moving on, which can tie back to several different characters as well. It's a really fun origin story of like why Bly Manor is haunted, I suppose. So yeah, it was a fun little kind of idea. I like that they had dropped a few little hints about it as time had gone on. The fact that, you know, the Lady of the Lake was going around in these cycles. We saw Viola's name on like the floor of the chapel way back when. I like that Key's kind of played a big role in some of the sequences in this, and that can kind of echo Peter's sentiments about, what life is, what people are. So I think that kind of ties in neatly. I quite like little things like that, just bringing it all together. And it's just a satisfying feeling, I think, when you get a lot of these answers. Cause I feel like we kind of know everything we really need to know now about all the situation with the ghosts and the creepy stuff. Now it can just be about the characters more so, with the last episode as they try and work out what the hell to do. Because currently Danny's not looking great for her. She's kind of in line to be drowned, which isn't ideal, I would say. So I don't know how/if she's going to get out of that one, and how it's all going to kind of go. No idea, but I am excited to see how they wrap this all up in the final episode, which I will probably be watching tomorrow at this time of recording. But yeah, really great origin story. I very much enjoyed it. Cool to see some familiar faces from Hill House back as well, and to get a lot of answers is always very satisfying. And I like how they tied it all together and had some similar themes and ideals going on. And yeah, it's just kind of a very tragic story, but a cool origin for things. So yeah, very good episode yet again. Excited and nervous for the finale. I kind of don't want this to end because I am really loving Bly Manor a lot. But yeah, it should be good to see how it all wraps up. But this was a great kind of, okay, this is everything that's been going on. Now sit back and maybe not enjoy how we pay this all off. So it is very interesting, I think. That's literally the penultimate episode of the show structurally. The episode before the end is like, here's how it all started. Here's the beginning of this story, technically, in a way. So I think that's quite an interesting thing. Especially because, shows like this, we get a lot of flashbacks most episodes anyway, filling in some gaps and, telling the story very all over the place way. It's probably very confusing for the people listening to the woman telling it. But to then get all of this just before, now we solve it, maybe. It's interesting kind of idea structurally. I quite enjoy that kind of storytelling. I think Hill House and Bly Manor both excelled when it comes to that. Keeps you very engaged, if nothing else. But yeah, great episode. Very excited to see how they're going to wrap this all up in the next one. And until my next reaction, thanks for watching.